One of the most important skills to master when it comes to running a successful business is the ability to negotiate properly. But this is a skill that is very rarely actually taught. A lot of people understand the benefits of negotiations, but don't actually know how to negotiate effectively. And in this video, I'm going to be sharing with you 6 tips that you can start using today to become one of the most effective negotiators that you even know for yourself. So let's get into this. So negotiations is such a key part of growing a successful business, because without negotiating, oftentimes you might be sacrificing a lot more food on the table. You might be leaving more food on the table, or you might actually just be losing deals completely. So what I'm going to be sharing with you now is the very first thing you need to do when going into a negotiation. And that is do your research. I'm always going on about this. You can never be lazy in research. It doesn't matter what you do, what your business is. You cannot be lazy in research. It's important to understand the other person at the other side of the negotiation table. What are their wants? What are their needs? What's their motivating factor? Once you understand this, you know, first of all, how to give them what they're looking for in your negotiation. But secondly, you know how to position the type of language to be using to get through to them so they can actually see the value in which you're presenting, because you know exactly what they're looking for. Without this research, it becomes a lot more difficult to really give that person what they're looking for, because you're just playing the guessing game. And in that situation, then it's literally up to the gods. And we do not want to leave you up to the gods. We want to take control, take charge of that negotiation. So we know when we're going into this environment, into this arena, we know what we are likely to come across when we get there. So that's the very first thing, do your research. And then the second one is to know your priorities. When you're going into this, what is important to you? Because look, a negotiation is not about you just going in there and crushing someone. Both parties have to feel like they've given something. A real good negotiation, both parties feel like they've given something, and they also feel like they've gained something. So you understanding what is important to you, what are your priorities, is key. Because when you get into the conversation, you also know, okay, you know what? This is not really a priority of mine, so I can give that up, right? It's not something that I'm massively focused on, so I'm able to comfortably give that up, because what I really want is not on the agenda yet. And when we get there, this person is going to soften up a little bit because I've already given something up, right? And it's also, okay, let's say you've even got to a position where you've already got something that you're looking for. And now we get to a stage where it's actually something that's not that important. Now, you don't just lay down, you know, and make it like an easy giveaway. You know, you still kind of stand your ground a little bit so it doesn't come across like, oh, that didn't really mean anything to them. You want to make it feel like it means something, but you're willing to give that up because, you know, you're trying to negotiate and you also want to give something to them as well. So that is the second thing. The third one is to consider the opposition to all of your arguments. Again, this comes in the research section. Let's say, for example, you're going into an interview and you're looking to ask for a salary that's above the average for that position. Now, clearly, there's going to be an argument on the other side of the table. What is that opposition, and how are you going to combat that? How are you going to make a good argument for why, irrespective of this deficiency, of the fact that this is above the average? Why should they give you that income in the first place? And again, you know, there are some things that you can talk about. You can talk about your experience. You can talk about, you know, things that you've accomplished. You can talk about, you know, what the bottom line that you're actually going to bring as a revenue to the business, whatever that might be. You need to understand that there is going to be an argument on the other side, or you need to be looking for, even if they are not smart enough to think about it, you need to be thinking about what the argument is on the other side, so you are able to combat that opposition. This is a real important part when it comes to really mastering negotiation. So that is number 3. Number 4, you have to keep communications open. You've got to keep communications open. Negotiations don't always have to just conclude at that point of the negotiation. And you've got to understand how to effectively keep the conversations open, you know, for future conversations without just killing things dead right there and then, you know. So just because you're not able to come to an agreement in that moment doesn't mean the deal's dead. right? It doesn't mean that conversation is over. So what you've got to be able to do is to understand how to keep those communication lines open. Okay, well, do you know what? I hear exactly where you're coming from. Right now, I can't quite get there. But what I would like to do is for both of us to go away. Let's really have a think of maybe where we could compromise it. Maybe there's some different things, or maybe there are different ways that we're not looking at things at the moment. And then we'll come back with some proposals. How does that sound to you, Mr. and Mrs. Negotiator on the other side of the table? Sounds good? Brilliant. Let's make that happen. So you're keeping those communication lines open. You're both able to go away, understanding that there's still a potential for this deal to happen and that the deal hasn't just died right there and then, okay? The next one is know when to walk away, because not all deals are good deals. And ultimately, you've gone in there with your priorities. You know what you're willing to and not willing to give away. And if it gets to the position where actually you are compromising too much, or a compromise that you're not willing to go to, then walk away from it, right? Not every deal has to be a deal that you go for. And I know sometimes it could be difficult because of the positions that we're in. We feel like this is something that we really need. But ultimately, in the end, we might end up just kicking ourselves for it. So if you get to that position and you're feeling like this is too much, know to walk away. That is also powerful in a negotiation, because when you are willing to walk away, the other party naturally understands, okay, you know what, I've got to the breaking point. Maybe I need to pull back a little bit. Does that make sense? So you need to understand when to walk away. And then the sixth, and by no least the least, is to keep your timeline in mind. What is your timeline to conclude these negotiations? This could crash the deal, or it could mean you get an absolutely incredible deal. Because if someone is in a rush, then they could end up sacrificing more than they want to. And sometimes it could be painful. Sometimes you might just do it then because you've got a short timeline. So you've got to understand what your timeline is. When do I need to get a decision on this deal? And how much am I willing to compromise in benefit of that timeline? This is so crucial. I've seen many people fall prey. And, people on the other side of the table also understand, the issue with timeline. And if you reveal your timelines to people too early in the negotiations, then that could actually come back to really haunt you. So you've got to be cautious. You've got to understand that keeping your timeline to yourself when you can is vitally important, but also understanding what your timeline is, and as a result of that timeline, what you're willing to sacrifice. Now, it might mean that you may be willing to sacrifice more because it's a shorter timeline, but at the same time, you don't want to give up too much. And the other person on the other side of the table, if they've also got a short timeline, then you've got to understand that, there is, some power within yourself in that conversation. But here's what I would say. Do not abuse that power, because you don't want someone walking away from a negotiation. This is to wrap it all up. You don't want someone walking away from a negotiation feeling like they have just absolutely been railroaded, because here's the reality. If someone feels that way, the likelihood of them doing business with you again is very, very slim. Now, you may feel like you've won that battle, but ultimately you may have lost the war, because this may be someone who in the future could have come back and completely transformed your business, with one particular deal. You don't know that. So you don't always want to go into a negotiation just thinking, I want to crush the other person. There's got to be give and take. Both people have got to walk away from that feeling like they've won. And as long as you're able to come to something that you are happy with, right, and the other person hasn't been crushed, listen, there might always be someone that's going to walk away from a negotiation feeling a bit happier than the other person. That's fine. But as long as the other person doesn't feel like they've just been crushed. So these are 6 key points to become really, really an effective negotiator. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Is there one that I've missed out? Or there's some that you would actually add to this as well? There's some that you've used in the past and I found to be very, very effective. Just like this, share this, and give me your comments in the comment section below. And I will see you all on the next video.